Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Carol and the HR team, for meeting with us today. My colleagues and I are proposing that the company extend health plan benefits for autism therapy for all of our employees. Our presenters today will be myself, Kristen, and my three colleagues, Cheryl, Kevin, and Lori. It was recently brought to our attention by members of our team that the number of employees with children with autism has increased immensely over the past year. Kevin's team alone has 3 members with new diagnosis in the past 6 months. I'd like to briefly go over what autism is so there can be a better understanding of why we're encouraging the company to adopt such a plan. The numbers in autism have skyrocketed over the past 20 years, so many of you may already be familiar with what autism is. Autism is a complex brain disorder. Symptoms may include difficulties in social interactions, difficulties in verbal and nonverbal communication, and signs exhibiting repetitive behaviors. There are several disorders which fall under the ASD umbrella, such as autistic disorder, child disintegrative disorder, pervasive developmental disorder, not other specified, which is typically known as PPDNOS, and Asperger's syndrome. ASD is also associated with learning disorders, intellectual disabilities, fine motor skills, physical health issues, unhealthy sleep patterns, and gastrointestinal issues. Signs and symptoms of ASD typically show up around age 2 to 3. These may include hand flapping, rocking, lack of eye contact, and self-stimulation. The earlier the intervention begins with therapy, the more quickly results are seen, which is why this proposal is so important to our employees. In 2010, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported that 1 in 68 have autism. In the year 2000, that statistic was 1 in 150. Autism is 5 more times common in boys, which averages to 1 in 42, than among girls, which is about 1 in 189. Autism affects more than 3 million people in the U.S. It's reported in all racial, ethnic, and social economic groups. It's one of the fastest growing developmental disorders in the U.S. There's no medical detection or cure for autism. I always like to point out that if you don't know someone with autism or you don't know a family member with autism, eventually you will. I'd like to introduce you to a young man named Jack. Jack is the son of one of our employees here at the company, and he was diagnosed with autism right before his 3rd birthday in 1999. Jack began intense applied behavioral analysis, ABA therapy, within a month of his diagnosis. Jack received 25 to 35 hours of therapy a week over a 3-year span. This therapy cost his parents out of pocket anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a month. Jack was also on a gluten-free, casein-free diet and vitamin therapy. The special food and supplements also were out of pocket for his parents. Jack's mama stated that these were some of the most stressful years for the family. Both parents were working, they had a baby on the way, and Jack was going through 25 to 35 hours a week of therapy. That therapy was very important, though, to Jack, and it's helped him become successful today. Jack still has autism, but he's grown into a respectable and loving young man, according to his mother. Jack can have a conversation, he can make eye contact, and he follows directions very well. Jack attends a vocational program through his local school district where he can learn job skills. Jack aspires to be a chef. Although, as mentioned earlier, autism is not curable, it is treatable, and there's success stories like Jack's every day. Individuals with autism are unique, so their individual treatments may vary. The different type of treatments may include speech therapy, occupational therapy, ABA such as Jack did, or special diets and supplements. My colleague Cheryl now will go over in more detail those different types of therapy which may help those individuals with autism.
The Interactive Autism Network, also known as IAN, was launched in 2007. Their goal was and is to provide scientific, evidence-based research about ASD, particularly as it applies to treatments both currently available and those being tested. An Ian survey of 552 parents of children with ASD was conducted in 2011. It found that nearly all children received simultaneous treatments. Most averaged 5 to 7 treatments or interventions at any one time. The most common treatments being used were speech therapy, occupational therapy, and applied behavioral analysis, or ABA. In addition, 52% of parents surveyed stated they used some form of medication, 27% were implementing special diets, and 43% used vitamin supplements. We are going to look at the most common and, as scientific evidence is showing, most effective interventions. Speech therapy is more than helping a child to speak. It is actually a specialized field of speech-language pathology and is usually provided by a speech-language pathologist, or an SLP. This field focuses on the study of communication, disorders of communication, and assessment and treatment of these disorders. As with most ASD treatments, early intervention is important. The SLP will target specific areas when working with the child. These areas are articulation and phonology, morphology or the grammatical rules of language, syntax, sentence structure, semantics, helping with language content and meaning, pragmatics, which is the social use of language, fluency, or the way speech flows, and prosody, which is the variations in pitch, volume, and rate of speech. In the Ian survey cited earlier, 90% of the parents whose children received speech therapy stated definite improvement, while 42% stated a high level of improvement. The purpose of occupational therapy, or OT, is to help those with disabilities to gain functional skills for daily living, such as self-care or play. The occupational therapist will focus on these specific areas impacting the child's ability to function and learn. Gross motor skills, which involves the large muscles used for running and jumping. Fine motor skills, the smaller muscles used for picking up small objects. Visual motor skills, or eye-hand coordination. Handwriting skills, self-care skills. Oral motor skills, which focuses on the muscles around the mouth, lips, and tongue. Motor planning skills, which involves the order of events for activities such as kicking a ball. Neuromotor skills, which is associated with muscle strength and tone. Sensory integration, which is the ability to sort out and respond to sensory information in their environment. You can see there's many skills a child with ASD may need assistance with. 35% of the parents surveyed whose children received OT state a high level of improvement, while 49% report moderate improvement. ABA is the process of applying behavioral principles to change specific behaviors and simultaneously evaluating the effectiveness of the intervention. ABA emphasizes both preventions and remediation of problem behavior. Again, early intervention is key to long-term success for children with ASD. The best ABA outcomes occur when it is initiated before age 5. ABA treatment is extensive. For success, a child will need between 25 and 40 hours a week. Here is a news story that will provide a picture of what ABA looks like and the benefits it provides.
Children once trapped in their own world are swirling into the mainstream thanks to a breakthrough therapy happening right here in the Bay Area.
All of our kids make progress. It does depend on how early we get the child. So, the younger the child comes in for therapy, the better it's going to be. If there's a lot of follow-through at home, obviously, then we would have better results. But all of our kids are making progress. All of our kids are communicating. Some kids are using vocalization. Some kids are using sign language. But all of our kids are moving forward.
Kelly Prince is the president of behavioral consulting and a skilled therapist. At her clinic, children formerly diagnosed with autism spectrum go into 10, 20, even 30 hours a week of intense treatment. Because children with autism often can't communicate, therapists help them develop a love of language.
Can you say banana?
Banana.
Nice. Try saying nana.
Banana.
Nana.
Banana.
Nana.
Nana.
Nice job, buddy.
Learning to communicate helps autistic children better control behavioral issues. It takes time,
Can you touch the frog?
repetition, and a lot of patience.
See, I did it.
I did.
That's a great job. You did.
I sat down with parent Patricia Taylor, whose son was diagnosed when he was just 3 years old. Charlie is already showing great promise. His mom believes he was genetically predisposed to autism, but also feels there are environmental issues. because like many autistic children, Charlie did have intestinal issues.
My son definitely has GI issues. We're actually treating it now. He is on the gluten-free, casein-free diet, which, he gets no gluten, no wheat, no dairy. And he's been on that for 3 months, and we did see improvement with that.
A new diet combined with aggressive therapy and time with a speech pathologist, Charlie now has the cards stacked in his favor to one day be mainstream.
This past April, Governor Charlie Crist signed a new bill called the Window of Opportunity Act. It is designed to have the private insurance sector help offset the cost of early intervention treatments, and that could save millions of dollars every year.
So you can see that ABA offers parents hope for their children's future. I want to express the importance of comprehensive treatment. There is no one treatment that is a catch-all for children with ASD. It is critical that interventions address behavioral issues, speech and language, education, and medication for specific physical symptoms when needed. As with any treatment, regular evaluations are important in order to make adjustments as necessary for the individual's long-term success. Laura is now going to share with you about the financial implications of ASD treatment.
The costs are devastating to a family who has a member with autism, both financially and on an emotional level. Autism does not discriminate. It affects all nations, all cultures, all ethnicities, and all socioeconomic situations. The total estimated cost for autism in the United States will top $268 billion in 2015. Over the next 10 years, expected costs will nearly double to $461 billion in 2025, with some predicting expenses to exceed $1 trillion. Individual autism cost estimates for those diagnosed with an intellectual disability are $2.4 million and $1.4 million for those without. 60% of the annual costs are from the needs during adulthood, particularly for the residential care across the adult lifespan. In addition, the specialized applied behavior analysis therapy for children with an intellectual disability costs $60,000 to $70,000 per year. These therapy sessions are typically available only in the large metropolitan areas, whereas rural residents often are required to drive several hundred miles round trip with an unpaid day off from work. The total costs are on the increase because the prevalence of autism is rising sharply, up 72% since 2007 to 1 in 68 children. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, a U.S. governmental agency for the health of Americans, 1 in 50 will likely be the diagnosis rate in 2016. There is tremendous stress and anxiety felt by the working parents who are navigating the responsibilities of an autistic child. But employers also feel this stress, often through decreased productivity, low engagement, or lower overall worker energy, greater risks to safety in the workplace, inconsistent or poor attendance by the employee. Parents with limited or no medical insurance for children with special needs face a heavy financial burden. 24 hours per week is the prescribed hands-on care requirement average for a child with a developmental disability. This demand forces the employee to miss an average of 250 hours during the course of the year, over and above all vacation and allotted sick days. In cases where the company benefits do not cover medical costs, often one parent from a two-income household either moves to part-time employment or leaves the workforce altogether to care for their child. When employees turn over, it puts strain on the company's ability to properly staff. Productivity setbacks, recruitment fees, onboarding charges, and retraining expenditures are all indirect and hidden costs incurred by companies who offer limited insurance benefits. The companies who do not offer sufficient benefits risk losing workers to competing companies who do. As the company and market conditions improve, competition for quality workers continues to escalate. These are the reasons progressive companies such as JP Morgan, American Express, Capital One, General Motors, United Technologies, and Chrysler Corporation have recently added therapy benefits to their employee plan.
You can see throughout this proposal that the lives of our teammates can be significantly affected because of the care and attention that autism requires. This can range from emotional to mental to physical strain within their personal lives. This personal strain carries over to the workplace and has affected individual work performance according to 47% of employees in recent polls. 16% agree that they have an increase in absenteeism, while 50% admit that they struggle concentrating. Even with 47% of people admitting their personal lives affect their work, it is fair to say that 100% of us can relate to the struggle of handling personal challenges of some kind. Whether it is the overwhelming obligations from medical care and treatment for yourself or for a family member, or the large financial burden that can be associated with medical treatment, we all have or will have to in the future deal with health challenges within our family. An insurance plan that offers coverage of ASD can give peace of mind to our employees. This transformation from financial burden to financial stability will lead to a clear mind and a more pleasant workplace for all team members. With treatment coverage through the company making such a significant impact, these employees affected will no longer feel the tension between workload and personal demands. They will instead feel like a valued asset and a permanent part of our company. Employees who are able to focus on their work will reduce mistakes and accidents. They will be present with an increased commitment to their company. As Kristen mentioned, there's a potentially large loss of time each month if employees cannot afford treatments, as they must take these tasks on themselves. Kevin presented research of about 250 work hours of additional absenteeism per employee managing ASD treatments. Coverage of ASD treatments will allow for employees to reduce their absenteeism, which will in turn increase productivity for the company. Stronger individual contributions to work tasks and overall productivity will rise. ASD coverage will increase retention of our team, which will minimize cost in training and new hire expenses. Employees who feel at peace knowing they have help in covering the costs of treatments can be more emotionally, mentally, and physically present to satisfy the needs of the company. Managing the impact of personal struggles due to medical conditions can be done in a strategic and beneficial way. We ask that you consider the benefits to increasing medical insurance coverage to cover autism treatments for our dedicated employees. Lifting the burden of managing and treating ASD is a small company investment for a large return. We can help our employees thrive within the company and ultimately help the company thrive for years to come. Thank you for your time and consideration.